Let's talk about the film Gentlemen Prefer Blondes with Marilyn Monroe and Jane Russell. Gentlemen Prefer Blondes is this timeless classic that was filmed in 1953, and since then audiences have just been enamored, captivated with the film. The film was directed by Howard Hawks and it stars Marilyn Monroe and Jane Russell in leading roles. It is delightful, it is glamorous, it is just filled with music. It's set in the 1920s and the movie tells the story of these two showgirls, Lorelei Lee, who is played by Marilyn Monroe, and then Dorothy Shaw, who is played by Jane Russell. They get on this cruise ship, this luxury cruise ship, and take this adventure. There are amazing songs, the costumes are to die for, and there are some classic lines in the film that Marilyn Monroe and Jane Russell contributed to. It's just a major part of Hollywood history. So let's dive into the trivia, the little known facts of the film. Let's just break it apart as we talk about these beautiful women. But first, I'm Deanna from Hot for History. Please subscribe to my channel where you will hear more history that I bet your history teacher never taught you in school. So when you see Marilyn Monroe performing Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend, it was in this film. The film premiered way over 70 years ago in Atlantic City, New Jersey. And it also had these premieres in New York City, Los Angeles. The entire country was following this film for several weeks on its release. So Lorelei Lee, who was Marilyn Monroe's character, was a showgirl, and she was engaged to this wealthy guy named Gus Esmond, and he was played by Tommy Noonan. And then she travels with her friend Dorothy Shaw, who is played by Jane Russell. Her fiance's father hires a private detective to follow them, and of course all this crazy stuff happens and it becomes this all-out musical comedy. Emphasis on music and comedy. But the interesting fact is that the original producers wanted nothing to do with Marilyn Monroe. They had their eyes set on Betty Grable, who was a huge, huge star in Hollywood at the time, but it would have cost them about $150,000 to cast her. So they cast Marilyn Monroe almost like for pennies. She only made $18,000 for that film, and she was really second billed. They didn't even give her her own trailer. They said, well, you're not the star, honey. And later she said, well, the film's name is Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, and I'm the blonde. So Jane Russell ended up earning $200,000. Marilyn was grossly underpaid for the film. During the film, Jane Russell accidentally fell into the swimming pool, but the director decided to keep it in the scene, and it became such a funny and iconic scene that you would have thought that it was on purpose. Tommy Noonan, who was Marilyn Monroe's love interest, totally disrespected Marilyn Monroe. He told a crew member that kissing her was akin to being swallowed alive. Monroe was mortified when she heard this, and she just locked herself in her makeup room. It took so much negotiating to just get her out of the dressing room to continue the film. He wasn't the only one to say that Marilyn didn't know how to kiss. Tony Curtis once said that kissing her was like kissing Hitler. There's this one line that Marilyn says to her fiance's father that is just classic. She says, "I can be smart when it's important, but most men don't like it." That line was Marilyn's idea, and it was probably based on her own life experience. The same ship that they used in Gentlemen Prefer Blondes was also used in another 1953 film about the Titanic. Probably didn't know, and I've never seen this film, but a couple years after Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, a movie called Gentlemen Marry Brunettes premiered, which also starred Jane Russell. We know that in the scene, Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend, pink dress that Marilyn Monroe wears is just iconic. Every woman who wants to act like she's Marilyn Monroe in Gentlemen Prefers Blondes is always going to find a pink dress, some gloves, some rhinestones. The dress was almost not used. Originally, they wanted her to wear something a lot flashier, a lot more diamonds. Eventually settled on the hot pink dress. Madonna years later wore a dress that was sort of similar when she filmed her video for Material Girl. The costume designer was a man named William Travilla. He designed the costumes not only for Gentlemen Preferred Blondes, but classic dress, pleated ivory cocktail dress that Marilyn Monroe in the 1955 film The 7-Year Itch. He also designed that, and that's the dress that she used when she was standing over the New York subway ventilation grate. Debbie Reynolds purchased that dress, and then in 2011 the dress sold for $4.6 million at an auction. Travilla also designed clothes and was nominated for an Academy Award for How to Marry a Millionaire in 1953, and There's No Business Like Show Business in 1954, and The Stripper in 1963. Gentlemen Preferred Blondes was so successful that it led to Marilyn Monroe renegotiating her deal with 20th Century Fox. The film earned over $5 million in the box office when it had its debut, which was outrageous. Marilyn Monroe was able to leverage that for her benefit to make more money. Now, the movie is based on the Broadway musical of the same name. It was written by Joseph Fields and Anita Luce, and the lyrics were by Leo Rubin, and the music was by Jules Stein. And it was based off of the best-selling 1925 book of the same name. The musical opened in New York City on Broadway in 1949, and it ran 740 performances with Carol Channing. Marilyn Monroe did sing her parts in Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, with a few exceptions, which Marnie Nixon, who was a famous voice actress, dubbed some of the high notes and some of the more difficult aspects of singing. Some of the most favorite songs from Gentlemen Prefer Blondes are Bye Bye Baby and Ain't There Anyone Here for Love, performed by Marilyn Monroe and Jane Russell. Howard Hawks, the director in Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, called Marilyn Monroe phony. He said, "She's as phony as a $3 bill and you're trying to make her real," Howard Hawks told 20th Century Fox executive Darryl Zanuck after Zanuck complained about losing money on his studio's recent films with Marilyn Monroe. Hawks said she belongs in an outrageous comedy. Hawks was trying to advocate for Marilyn Monroe, so Zanuck listened to him and said, "Fine, so let's put her in the movie Monkey Business and Gentlemen Prefer Blondes." And that was the thing that sealed the deal for Marilyn. Marilyn Monroe and Jane Russell became really good friends, and they had great chemistry on film together. Jane Russell was an advocate for Marilyn's for her entire life. It was pretty funny because Jane Russell was trying to convert Marilyn Monroe to Christianity. After the film, merchandise for Marilyn Monroe items went out of the roof. It catapulted Marilyn Monroe to worldwide fame, resulting in tons of merch that featured her image. The film's choreography was also praised. The dance numbers in Gentlemen Prefer Blondes are known for their intricate choreography and energetic performances. The choreographer was a man named Jack Cole. He was also an amazing dancer, and many people called him the father of American jazz dancing. Also, Chita Rivera praised him for the choreography in West Side Story, and she says the style he created was like nothing you've ever seen. He could be exciting and scary, and maybe you didn't always want to hang around him, but I'm delighted we got to dance together at the beginning of my career. This was the film that catapulted Marilyn Monroe to success. She may have only been paid $18,000, but that film alone brought her to a place of better negotiation and being able to call the shots for what films she wanted in Hollywood. She became a cultural icon from her portrayal of Lorelei Lee, and she made a lasting impression on the world of entertainment. The film is timeless, and it's retained its charm and continues to be cherished by audiences all around the world for its music, its glamour, its choreography, the plot, and the performances. Every time you turn on this film, Marilyn Monroe and Jane Russell are just vibrant and alive in this film, and it is one that you have to see. I'm Deanna from Hot for History. Please subscribe to my channel where you will hear more history that I bet your history teacher never taught you in school.